Greetings! Welcome to the Devlog for hot dogs, horseshoes, and hand grenades. We're going to start off as always with a quick sound check. Make sure speakers aren't up too high. Wonderful. So what have we got for you this week? Well, this week I decided to take a little bit of a break from doing the scene migration and difficult systems work. I was feeling a little bit burned out, so I decided to take, well, an Anton break, which means work just as much, but do it on stuff that is a little lower impact and sort of immediate gratification. And so what I decided to do, especially after playing a bunch of take and hold with the World War II spawn table, is fill that out a little more. So let's start small and work our way up. So the first thing we've got is this beautiful set of P38s. We've got the standard one here and a snub version that is designed to mount a suppressor. I don't have the oversized suppressor that I've seen in old images yet for this, but I do want to eventually get it in. Let's go ahead and fire the sucker. Single stack, 9mm. Certainly doesn't have the, classic looks and interesting toggle action of a Luger, but I know that some folk are indeed partial to this one. The next thing we've added here is actually some new throwables that are in our World War II era. So the first one is the Mark II. That's right, we finally have ourselves a pineapple grenade. So let's, I don't need to spawn lock, I'll just do one. This works how you'd expect it. We pull our pin out, throw that away, pop our spoon off. Boom! Wonderful. That one actually has a longer fuse time than the 219. The next one up we have is the number 69 impact grenade. This is a British one. I'm going to have to be careful throwing this. Spawn lock it. And the way these work is we just take the cap off. It doesn't have a timed fuse. It is an impact fuse. So this is going to explode the moment it strikes something. So definitely be careful with these in take and hold. I know I've gone to throw them around a corner and whoops, there's a bot right there and have ended myself. So pull the cap off, throw that away. And beautiful. Pop that over there. And then lastly, I know this is the one that you're most interested in. That's right, we have the German stick grenade. I'm not going to actually try to pronounce its name in German because I will just butcher it. And this has a couple cool features. For one, it's a melee weapon, so you can actually do damage with this. You could say TF2 style. It will not explode on you from impact. And then to actually use it, we pull the back cap off first. We throw that away, and then we pull this little fuse piece out. The moment you pull this out, it's going to start ticking down. So we pull that out. Look at that bounce. Boom! Perfect. And throw that away. So those are your three new throwables that will show up in the spawn tables for take and hold. Moving right along, we've got, as you can see, a bunch more. The next one up is a personal favorite. This is a piece of my own cultural history, as I'm half Polish. This is and I hope I pronounce this right, the Błyskawica, which translates, I think, to lightning, which this was an SMG that was entirely surreptitiously produced by the Polish resistance in Warsaw. It's essentially, imagine a Sten made even simpler, and it has much simpler construction. You'll notice that it makes use of screws, instead of welds. There's a number of great articles on this, so if you're interested in mid-century arms, I definitely recommend looking up some info on it. No real safety here. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Let's run one more mag through it. Delightful. Delightful. Love it. Just, sure, it's crude looking, but it has found a place in my heart. Bonk. Bonk. Next up, we actually have let's do the SMG next here, the other one. This is arguably the most successful and sort of widely used submachine gun of the mid-century period, of the World War II period. This is the Beretta Model 38. It's quite huge, actually, but just really, really beautiful. I've got 10, 20, and 30 round magazines for it. We've got a separate non-reciprocating op rod on the side. It's got 2 triggers right now because just the way your controllers work. I have this just set up to only fire in full auto, but it's a slow enough cyclic rate that squeezing off single shots shouldn't be an issue. Click that over to fire. Whoops, that broke. Gotta fix that before we push the update. Really, really, really controllable recoil for being, because it's just so incredibly large and heavy, while only popping out some semi-auto rounds. Not semi-auto, 9mm. Man, I'm tired. Beautiful. Beautiful. Just classic look. Love that heat shield and compensator on the front. Just gorgeous. I must admit, one of the joys of implementing all these arms in the game is just studying and getting to experience putting together recreations of all these classic pieces. So the next ones we have here are a little more idiosyncratic. Most of you are familiar with the M1 and M2 carbines from U.S. Army in World War II. Well, there were a number of other designs that were submitted by other groups to produce that a carbine in that class for the U.S. government. A number of other failures, basically. So I have 2 of them here that are of particular interest that I managed to find or adapt. This is the Hyde light carbine. I believe this is the second version of it. There was the different versions were submitted for the trials. There's a great Forgotten Weapons video on this one, and apparently it was just a pain to disassemble, a little rattly, not terribly accurate, but I just love the lines and the proportions of it. So popping out 30 carbine, which is quite peppy. Semi-auto only. I believe this is a 15 round mag. Beautiful. And then the other one that was in that competition, throw this yunk over here, is this one was, in my opinion at least, a bigger failure. Auto Ordnance basically tried to adapt their Thompson for this competition, despite the fact that it was already twice as heavy as what was being asked for. They wanted, I believe, a carbine that was like 5 or 5.5 pounds. And I believe the Thompson's something like 12 unloaded. So this obviously was not picked, but I was able to modify our existing Thompson model to mimic the one I saw in a Forgotten Weapons video. So it's just like a Thompson, except firing an even peppier cartridge. Perhaps a little too fast to be controllable. 20 round box mag, but a fun addition, and of course just having another carbine option in Take and Hold is welcome as far as I'm concerned. What's next? I know a number of you are like me and that you just love the Model 8, but I think because it's in Battlefield 1, I have just been barraged since that game with requests for the 81, which is the version of the Model 8 that takes a removable magazine. And so I have that here for you today. 15 round box mag, that AK style fire selector. Pop this back. Same beautiful 35 Remington. Love those long recoil rifles. This can, in fact, still be reloaded and or topped up with stripper clips. Which, personally, I think the combination of having a removable 15-round box like this and the 5-round stripper clip just makes this a delightfully versatile piece. Just look at that. Just beautiful. Ugh, just love stuff from this era. Love it. Throw that over there. Nice. And then the last of our standard ones here is another unusual piece. These were actually produced in small numbers, which was surprising. Until I was doing research for stuff in this era, I had never heard of this rifle. It sort of looks like a bit of a space gat. That's the Johnson 1941 rifle. This would have sort of competed for the battlefield role of the Garand. And it's got this integrated helical rotary magazine, and takes 5-round stripper clips in from the side. So we can pop one in and then a second, because it's 10-round capacity. Pull that back. Beautiful. I think I actually have the wrong recoil profile on that. That should be kicking way more. So we will fix that before we push an update tonight. Let's just do it one-handed to check. Yeah, that should be kicking more than that. Beautiful. But yeah, just what a handsome rifle that is. Oh, just love the proportions. Does sort of feel like something out of Wolfenstein, just with the pot belly there. So yeah, so we're almost done. I'm gonna actually pull the rest of these out of the item spawner. I didn't want to have them spawned all at once. But if we jump over here to support, whoa, what's that? We've got a bunch more things in our machine gun category. So basically what's in here is that we now have long versions of the Bren and the Bar, not just the shorties. So if you want to fight with a full-length one that actually has a deployable bipod, you now can. So we can, which is actually the way that I fired it when I went to Battlefield Vegas. I basically plopped it down there, sort of pull it up towards your target, lean down into it like so. Beautiful. Oh, I'm such a fan of the 1918. And to go with our extra long Bren Bar, we've got a third World War II LMG added to the family. I'll spawn the shorty on it. That's right, we got the Dinner Plate 28, nicknamed such because it uses this interesting sort of rotary on a different axis magazine that goes in on the top. So if we just pull that bipod out there, slap it down, the way these work in real life is you sort of line it up like that, seat it down in, and then give it a whack like that, especially if you are a dummy like me and didn't pull the bolt back first. Pop that off. This one is just beastly. I'm going to fire this from standing. It's more fun. Delightful. Just delightful. So, some heavy firepower for late stage take and hold, to be sure. This one is a 48 round magazine. Far too much fun. Far too much fun! So, now that we have taken a look at all of the new toys and tools, let's jump back out of VR and talk about some of the other little changes that I made this week and what's coming next.
Yo! So we're out of VR now, obviously. And so what are the other things that I have been futzing with? Well, I've still been tuning, thankfully having to do less so, the spawn tables in Take and Hold. And the primary things that I've done is I've slightly widened the range of what can show up in that initial spawn box for you. And sort of combined a couple tables to slightly drop the incidence of shotguns appearing, especially in the beginning, because I know that's irritating for a lot of you folk. There is still about a 20% chance with some of the spawn tables that both the thing you start with and the first supply point will have a shotgun both in them. I don't want to eliminate that, but the incidence should be a little more balanced. Beyond that, I've changed how equipment tops out a little bit, so it should be a little more sensible. And obviously, with the new additions that I just showed you, there certain tables have a significantly widened list of things that can spawn for them. It was one of the things that I really wanted to help out, specifically for the World War II table, which is that stuff at that sort of like upper full power class that things like the Garand would be in was a little thin. So it was like, oh wow, I have a Garand, an M1 carbine, M2 carbine, or an STG, and the number of things that can sort of spawn in that category has actually been doubled by this update. So that should hopefully add a bunch more variety for the late game play for that mode, especially with the addition of the LMGs. So obviously, I also tweaked thrown incidents a little bit. Before, it was like significantly more likely that you would always get an attachment instead of thrown stuff, which made sense to a certain extent for the standard table, but not as much for the World War II table. So that's been altered. So there should be, always make sure to really look around in a supply point, because some of the spawn points are a little odd, I admit, to make sure that nothing fun didn't spawn, which also means you should probably be careful using explosives into spawn points you haven't checked out, because you could set things off or destroy them or have them sort of glitch outside of the level. Beyond that, I think I have finally solved the problem of when you're holding small firearms and your forward hand goes a little too far forward and the round hits your own hand and just doesn't go anywhere. I thought I had fixed that a while back, but I had placed a check in the wrong sort of loop of the code, and that's what was happening, is it was still sort of catching that even though it was no longer doing damage to you. So hopefully that should be fixed in this alpha. So now that I've basically had a sort of gun implementation vacation this past week, getting these all finally online and finished, I'm going to, this week, go back to mode conversion. So Meat Grinder is finally going to get finished. I started work on it, but it's just so much stuff to migrate over to new systems. I couldn't bear to just grind through it in a single week. And then the thing that I'm going to be doing to sort of like, I had originally planned to sort of remove the Meat Miss Snow Globe until the next holiday period, but I know that right now, for many of you, it fills a sort of gap of longer range engagement with bots in a free-form way, so I don't want to strip it out. For now, what I am going to do is take all of the like event microtransaction-y goofy stuff out of it and probably rearrange a bunch of the platforms to make it a little less, there's one plinth and just open space, to just have it as a sort of bright, goofy, you know, bot fighting arena until the next holiday season comes around. So yeah, so that is my plans for this coming week. I hope you enjoy all of the new toys, and I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. Peace.